Hello and welcome, guys. We continue analyzing our behavior, and today is our next analysis exercise. So, we discussed which behavior we want to change, and today we're gonna look a bit deeper at it and understand how this behavior even appeared in our life and how we're gonna change it. So, first of all, what we're gonna do is we're gonna understand the history of this behavior and what made it possible for us to develop this habit or this addiction or this impulse to act a certain way. What can be the reason? For example, it can be any kind of diagnosis. Like if you have ADHD, you will be more prone to certain behaviors. If you have other diagnoses, also can lead to certain behaviors. So first of all, is just the features of how your brain works. Okay. Second one is how you were conditioned to act in childhood. For example, if your parents didn't hear a calm no and didn't accept a calm no, you might get used to instantly raising your voice and saying no in a very aggressive way. And this is the behavior you developed because of the conditions back then. Or I oftentimes see, for example, in anxious people that in their past they had either very, very anxious, overprotective parents or parents that are neglectful and just don't care about their child. So these two opposites oftentimes result in anxiety in an adult person. So your first task is actually to analyze what in your personal history, in your family history, in your culture, maybe in your religion, maybe in the place where you grew up, made it possible for you to develop this behavior and to develop this issue. This is really, really important and very essential. So, for example, let's say that you have an issue of distracting yourself and avoiding doing something that you need, procrastinating, and instead surfing on the internet, watching funny TikTok videos. So, this is the behavior that you want to target. What could be the reasons from your past for this behavior? For example, let's say that you had an anxious grandmother or anxious mother, and because they were so anxious, you also developed this anxiety disorder or something similar. So you get anxious much more often than so-called normal people, because you got so much more anxiety going on in your life in childhood. So this can be one reason why you use this behavior. Another reason is, for example, you saw your own parents cope with emotions by smoking, drinking, overeating, or playing computer games, or just distracting themselves in different ways. Third reason can be that your parents were calming you down using distractions. Like when you get upset, they give you a doll. When you get upset, they turn on TV. When you get upset, they give you sweets. When you get upset, they give you their phone or something like that. Like distracting you from your emotions. So you learned that this is the way to tolerate my emotions. I just distract myself from them. So yes, analyze your past and analyze what could be, like conditions because of which this behavior developed. It's really interesting to analyze and really important, because then you can understand how it came to be, and also you can understand that this behavior is not who you are. It's just something you developed because of life circumstances, and you can change it definitely. So first of all, we analyze those like past conditions that brought this behavior to be present. Then what we analyze is factors of vulnerability, like what makes you more vulnerable to fall into this behavior. In the previous video, we discussed about how to describe all of the events and all of the experiences you have before you engage in the behavior, before you start doing certain action. So yes, this is a bit similar, but pay a special attention to things that make you kind of weaker and more susceptible to this behavior. Like for example, most of us, if we didn't sleep enough, eat enough, rest enough, have enough physical activity, we are not going to feel mentally well, and because of it we might be more susceptible to I don't know, overeating, to drinking alcohol, to getting anxious, to getting, I don't know, into conflicts in our relationships and so on. So analyze the factors that make you susceptible to this behavior. Maybe it's when you don't do anything and feel unproductive. Maybe it's when you didn't sleep enough. Maybe it's when you're surrounded by people and it is overwhelming for you. Maybe it is when, on the contrary, you spend too much time alone. So your task now, first of all, is writing down your personal history that makes this behavior possible for you and habitual for you. And secondly, writing down all the small things that influence and make this behavior more likely for you. So please feel free to pause the video and do those two written exercises, and then we'll continue. Okay, next one, what we're gonna do is we're gonna analyze as well factors that make this behavior chronic. It means factors that make us repeat this behavior again and again and again and again. For example, you use scrolling on the internet in order to calm your anxiety, and it actually helps, so you continue doing that. This is a factor that reinforces the behavior. Or maybe you are surrounded by people who do the same and they are reinforcing your behavior. Another example is really common with people who have anxiety disorders or panic disorders, is that, for example, they have panic in certain circumstances and they start avoiding those circumstances, and this avoidance leads to their anxiety actually getting bigger. So after that they start avoiding even more. So you see, it becomes like a vicious circle, and makes this behavior chronic, and makes it become like a habit and even kind of like addiction in a way. Like, I have to avoid certain things, or I'm horribly scared and in panic if I actually have to go and do those things. So this is our last point that we need to analyze: what you are doing, what you are thinking that makes this behavior chronic, that makes it repeat itself. It can also be not just actions, it can also be thoughts. Like, for example, again, you avoid doing something that you should, and you just tell yourself, oh, it's not a big deal, maybe it's not even that important, I can do it some other time, and so on and so on. And this way, by rationalizing why you didn't do it, you kind of give yourself a reason to repeat the same cycle of procrastination again. Or another example of thoughts can be like, you are smoking cigarettes, you're trying to quit, but then you suddenly start smoking again, and then you are thinking to yourself like, oh, but some people live very old even if they smoke. Who cares? Maybe it's fine. At least I'm gonna live a fun life. I don't care if I smoke. You kind of try to justify it and rationalize it. And this kind of thinking can be one of the reasons why this behavior becomes chronic and why it's so difficult to change it. It can also be different thoughts like, oh, if I smoke just one cigarette, doesn't make a big difference. If I don't do this now, it's fine. It's like a drop in the sea. It doesn't change my whole life. This action is useless anyway, and so on and so on. All kinds of sabotaging self-talk can also be one of the factors making this behavior chronic. So yes, this is our analysis for today. I want you to write down things that make this behavior chronic and habitual for you as well. Take a critical look on what you think, what thoughts you have about this behavior that let you engage in it again and again. Take a look what other people influence your behavior as well, and can also be contributing to it getting more chronic, and also to your actions that make it more chronic. Like example I made with anxiety disorder, you feel anxious, so you start avoiding certain places and situations, and because of it you feel more anxious and you start avoiding even more, and so on and so on, and it becomes like chronic problem for the person. Yes, and let me remind you what we have for today. First of all, writing down your personal history, what makes this behavior so habitual for you, what leads you to this behavior, what in your past made this behavior likely. Maybe your parents were anxious, or maybe on the contrary they were angry and impulsive, so you learned to act in the same way. Maybe you saw your father process their emotion with addictions like alcohol and such. So analyze your life history and past history, what brings this behavior. Second step is analyzing what are the factors of vulnerability, in which situations you are more vulnerable to behave in this way. For example, when you are tired, when you did not eat, when you did not exercise, when you were alone too much, when you were with people too much, and so on. And third, what we're going to do is analyze what makes this behavior chronic, what makes it not just happen once, but repeat itself. It can be your thinking, your self-talk, it can be your actions, it can be actions of people around you, or maybe something you see in the media, and so on and so on. And after we analyze all that, please write it down, and this will be also really useful for you, for your like mindfulness, awareness of why you have a certain behavioral strategy and what actually leads to that. And this is useful, and based on this conceptualization you can basically decide which next steps to change, like which next steps to take in order to change this behavior. Because for example, if you use certain behavior to feel less anxious, you can work with changing the behavior, or you can work with your thoughts and change thoughts so that you feel less anxious, because a lot of our anxiety is caused by our thoughts and self-talk. Or you can work with your emotional regulation skills, and this way learn to process this anxiety better. So depending on this analysis, you can find which things influence this behavior most of all. Like maybe what influences your behavior most of all is your feeling of anxiety, so you need to work with that. Or maybe what influences your behavior most of all is that you don't have proper regime of sleep and eating and rest and so on, and because of that you have behavior problems. Maybe what influences your behavior most of all is situation in which you end up, like if you meet certain people and go to certain places, this triggers this behavior most of all. Or if you get in conflicts, this triggers the behavior most of all. Or if you have a lot of anxiety in relationship, in this case maybe you better work on communication skills. I also have a separate playlist for that. So basically you're trying to find several keys to this behavior and change them, and then the behavior will also change, or you can work on it to change it. And that's it for today. I also recommend you checking out my playlist called Goal Setting Skills, because there you can find out how to say you can find out how to build up the desired future result and how to actually move towards it. Yeah, so yes, for today you know your home task. This is until the next week, and next week we're going to talk about techniques of actual change, behavioral change. And I see you soon. Bye bye.